Hi guys, Forgotten Wolf here, and this is part one of my new series going on. What if Game of Thrones went to 10 seasons? In this What If series, I'll be going season to season, doing changes that can better adapt the books to 10 seasons, and allow for the characters, all the characters to be included, and plots to be more better adapted and fleshed out. The way I'll be doing this is, seasons 5 and 6 will be adapting A Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons, since they basically take place at the same time. Seasons 7 and 8 should be on The Winds of Winter, and season 9 and 10 are on A Dream of Spring. Of course, seasons 7 through 10 I'll be using my predictions for The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring on my prediction series, but yeah, I'll be making a few changes there to better fit the show. Before we begin, a majority of this was helped with a Reddit post that I will link in the description. I'll be going over all the characters adapting each season, covering all the major plot points. With that out of the way, let's begin. And as a side note, you can assume Lady Stoneheart was adapted at the end of season 4. Let's start with season 5. The start of season 5 will be Cersei's prophecy with Maggie the Frog. However, it's the full extent, and like in the books, foreshadowing the Valonqar prophecy. Then it's Cersei 1 and 2 with her reaction to Tywin's death. And as a side note, Jaime 1 happens at basically the same time. Next is Aeron 1, this is Aeron 1 was supposed to go here, but I'm replacing it with the death of Balon Greyjoy to speed the Greyjoy's plot along. The next chapter is Arya Hota 1 with the death of Oberyn Martell affecting all of Dorne and the huge deaths of the last season, being Tywin and Oberyn. It's felt across the whole realm, and this is followed up by Arya Hota 2 with Oberyn ordering the arrest of the Sand Snakes. Next chapter is Brienne and 1, where her and Podrick travel to Rosby, and they are there. We then go up to the Night's Watch and the Wall, where in Jon 12, Jon becomes Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. And I just have to check something. I just have to check something really quick. Okay, yeah. Moving on to episode 2. Now, to start off episode 2, it is Asha 1 and Victarion Greyjoy 1, with both of them preparing for the King's Move. Next, we are introduced to Quentyn Martell, and he arrives in Meereen. I know that seems very fast, but basically, yeah, Quentyn Martell, adapting, he arrives in Meereen, and Victarion and Asha Greyjoy both arrive on the Iron Islands, preparing for the King's Move. The next chapter is Brienne 2, where she is in Duskendale, but in order to keep with a solid budget and realistic, I'm replacing Duskendale with Harrenhal. And Brienne's search for Sansa and Arya continues. And then we catch up with Tyrion, where he arrives in Pentos, and he wonders about what is going on in King's Landing. As a side note, Pentos, you can assume he meets Elroy Mopatis. We then cut to Cersei 3, where King Tommen is married to Margaery Tyrell, making her Queen Marjorie. Yeah, and the next chapter in episode 2 is Sansa 1, where Nestor Royce visits the area and further investigation of Lysa Arryn's death occurs. And next chapter is Arianne Martell 1. Arianne Martell, I am in fact adapting, and Marcel is wounded, and Arianne hears of Tywin's death, and Arianne plots to make Marcella queen over Tommen. But to end episode 2, we do get, after Jon is named Lord Commander, we see Jon rejects Stannis' offer for the same reasons as in the show. In episode 3, we start off with Brienne 3, where she is in a new place, but we're still sticking with Harrenhal. As while Brienne is in Harrenhal, she hears of Lysa Arryn's death and all the other major deaths from last season. From there, we travel all the way up to north, where we see Jon plan to send Samwell Tarly away with Maester Aemon, and Maester Aemon isn't going to die at the Wall. And this adapts Samwell Tarly 1. And this is followed up 2 days later, as in Jon 2, which are also adapting. Sam and Maester Aemon leave for the Citadel, and then we get the badass sequence of Jon executing Janos Slynt. That's really satisfying and really cool. Next, we continue in the north, where we learn from Theon that Ramsay Bolton is to marry Arya Stark, introducing the fake Arya plot. The difference is the whole sequence takes place in Winterfell instead of the Dreadfort in Theon 1. We then cut to Braavos with the real Arya Stark, where she finally reaches Braavos, and she is denied by the Faceless Men. And then we cut back to the Night's Watch, where Davos 1 is adapted, except I'm altering it to make Stannis send Davos to go negotiate with the various Northern Lords and try to rally them to his side. Then we return to Daenerys, where she meets Quentyn Martell, and they try to come to an agreement, but Daenerys decides to stay Marine and she doesn't believe in his loyalty, if that makes sense. Next is Jaime 2, where we learn that Olenna Tyrell, Kevan Lannister, and Lancel Lannister have all left King's Landing, while Mace Tyrell intends to leave for Storm's End to try and take it. And to end episode 3, we see Tyrion again, and he meets young Griff to end the episode. Or not yet, he sees his camp. In episode 4, Jon tries to convince Mance to bend the knee, but this is unsuccessful and leads into Jon 3, where Jon kills Mance while he's being burned alive, basically the same sequence as in the show. The next chapter is Davos 2, where Davos arrives in White Harbor and he attempts to negotiate with the Manderleys, but in Davos 3, he is arrested by the Manderleys. Now, I should mention, this is going to be one of the last times we see Davos, purely because I need to extend his plot to Season 6 to keep him active. Next is the King's Moot between Yara Greyjoy and Victarion Greyjoy, but then we get our introduction to Euron Greyjoy, and he wins the King's Moot, taking the role of King of the Iron Islands. And once again, we catch up with Quentyn Martell afterwards, where he arrives in Volantis, where not much happens besides that. And then in Arya 2, the whole sequence where she's threatening people in Braavos and in the streets, and then she finally enters training, happens here. Jaqen H'ghar is in Braavos, by the way. Elsewhere in the Free Cities, it's Tyrion 4, where Tyrion spends time with the Shy Maids on his way to the Nyssar. To end episode 4, Cersei 4, where a bunch of stuff happens. Cersei has Gregor Clegane's head prepared for the Dornish, and Qyburn undergoes his experiments with a bunch of people. And Cersei also decides to release Lord Manderley's son for the arrest of Davos, and she also hears that Jon Snow is Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and she plans to deal with Jon Snow. In episode 5 now, it's the second part of Cersei 4, where Cersei talks to Margaery about being queen. Then we are introduced to a certain Osney Kettleblack, and she tells Osney Kettleblack to try and seduce Margaery. We continue with Cersei 5, where we see Cersei intentionally ignoring the envoy of the Iron Bank. More on that later. Or maybe not. Maybe it's something that's not followed up on. Next chapter being adapted is Jon 4, where Jon tries to convince Stannis to go and win the support of the Mountain Clans and take Deepwood Motte, and Stannis also learns of Davos' imprisonment. Daenerys 4 is next, where Daenerys tells Hizdahr they will marry if it will be a full month without anyone being killed by Sons of the Harpy or an undetermined amount of time. The wedding isn't going to take place in Season 5, so yeah, you can make that up with however long Season 5 is supposed to be. And we catch up with Sansa, where she meets Lyn Corbray and all that in the Vale, and this is followed by Brienne of Tarth finally leaving Harrenhal, after a couple episodes there now. Meanwhile, Samwell Tarly is sick as he passes Skagos with Gilly and Maester Aemon, and then we finally catch up with Bran again, where we see him properly learn what green seeing is and what it can do. And to end episode 5, we catch with Tyrion again. Funny, why am I always ending this with Tyrion? Basically, in this chapter, Tyrion is attacked by the Saros and the Stone Men, later captured on his way to Aegon's band and camp. We are now halfway through Season 5. Moving on to episode 6, and it's starting at the beginning of the end for the season. Stannis is the main focus of this episode, with him finally leaving Castle Black, and then we see him taking Deepwood Motte. And then we cut to Stannis' opponents in Winterfell, the Boltons, as they have been absent through a majority of the season, but now we get to see them. The fake Arya arrives in Winterfell, partially adapting Theon 2. Next is Jon 5, where we see Jon Snow convince the Wildlings to join the Night's Watch, or at least part of them. And then we see Cersei afterwards, where she watches as a new High Septon is chosen, and then we see Cersei rearm the Faith Militant. This is crucial because it's taking place later in the season now, and this is spreading out Cersei's plot. Then we finally see Brienne 5, with the plot continuing as expected, except it's reusing sets we saw Robb Stark use in Season 2. And finally, to end episode 6, it is not a Tyrion chapter. It's Jaime 3, where Jaime leaves King's Landing, and then when he leaves, it cuts to Harrenhal, where Jaime frees Lord Manderley's son as payment for the Manderleys imprisoning Davos back in episode 4. In episode 7, it starts off by adapting Sam 3, where Sam has to stop in Braavos briefly for some reason, and while in Braavos, he meets Arya Stark. The two talk, and Sam reveals to Arya that Jon is now Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Next, we see Astapor being conquered by the slavers, and Quentin Martell is a part of the siege there, or he's part of the defense. Next chapter is Tyrion 6. I know I say chapter, but these are the chapters that are being adapted, where we get to see a full introduction to young Griff or Aegon Targaryen, a character set up for a while. Tyrion talks a lot with young Griff, and it ends with Tyrion finally convincing Aegon to invade Westeros without waiting for Daenerys. Speaking of Daenerys, Dany 5 is next, and Daenerys has a dream about Daario showing her love for him, and then she orders him and the second sons come back to Meereen. We return to Westeros with Jon 6, where Jon receives news of two things. 1, Arya Stark is to marry Ramsay Bolton, and 2, Rattleshirt is causing chaos in Barrowtown. Jon speaks with Melisandre afterwards, sending out enraged north of the Wall, and he is mad that Arya is marrying Ramsay Bolton, but he decides his duty as a member of the Night's Watch, and he goes south to fight Rattleshirts, and he wins, killing him. Jaime then arrives in Derry, where he hears about the Faith Millicent. Knowing full well what happened, Jaime immediately rides to King's Landing. We then catch up with Brienne of Tarth, where we see the crimes allegedly committed by the Hounds in the salt pans, and Brienne is absolutely horrified by what she sees. And finally, to end the episode, we catch up with Davos Seaworth, where he is told by the guards that in a certain amount of time, he will be visited by Lord Manderley. And that's the last time we see Davos, I believe. He'll be in Season 6, but once again, I need to drag his plot out. Episode 8 starts with Melisandre 1, where Melisandre has a vision of Bran and Bloodraven in the cave, and this revelation has Melisandre shocked she realizes Bran and Rickon are alive. When going to tell Jon, she sees the bodies of the Rangers mentioned last episode, and she tells Jon this vision, and Jon has his suspicions that Bran was alive, but nonetheless he's happy. Next, we catch up with Tyrion, where he sees Aegon Targaryen preparing for the start of his invasion of Westeros, but when Tyrion leaves to use the bathroom, or piss, he is kidnapped by Jorah Mormont, and this leads directly into Jon Connington 1, where he gets the support of the Golden Company to assist Aegon in his invasion of Westeros. We then catch up with Asha Greyjoy, where we learn she fled the Iron Islands after Euron became king, and she arrives at Deepwood Motte and tries to get inside the castle, thinking the Ironborn still hold it, but she is allowed in only to be taken prisoner by Stannis' men, as Stannis conquered it in a previous episode. We then catch up with the other major Kingsmoot candidate, being Victarion Greyjoy, and Euron commands Victarion to take the Shield Islands, and Victarion sets sail for the Shield Islands. Arianne Martell 2 is next, and Darren Martell agrees to free her at the end of a long conversation, and they are finally aligned. Brienne 7 is next up, and this is the last time we'll see Brienne and Podrick this season, and they stop in the Inn at the Crossroads, where she's lured away by the Brotherhood, saying they need her help. And to end episode 8, it's an adaptation of Arya 3, where Arya kills Daeron, and then she is punished for her actions by Jaqen H'ghar, and she goes blind. Just 2 episodes to go. It starts with Jon 7 and Jon Snow, where Jon brings more wildlings back to the Wall, particularly Wun. As a side note, this is the second to last time we'll see Jon in this season. Tyrion 7 is next, and basically he learns that Jorah Mormont is his kidnapper. It's also an introduction to Penny, a female dwarf. Next is Sam 4, where Sam stops in Goldtown and Maester Aemon finally dies. Sam sends his body back to Castle Black, and it won't get there until next season. Meanwhile, the Ironborn under the command of Victarion Greyjoy takes the Shield Islands, which causes all sorts of chaos in King's Landing. Cersei receives word of the fall of the Shield Islands, and Stannis taking Deepwood Motte. Cersei has a lot of moves to make, and the first is sending Mace Tyrell to take Dragonstone, and Larys leaves King's Landing in order to rally the forces of Highgarden to take back the Shield Islands, basically taking the role of Garland Tyrell. We then get to see the High Septon starting to make an influence over Tommen, and Cersei and Jaime notice this, and while Jaime tries to convince Tommen otherwise, Sir Osney Kettleblack is sent to confess that he slept with Marjorie and Cersei is doing this to get the young queen out of her way. In the finale of Season 5, this is a big one. First off, Jorah and Tyrion are attacked in Valyria, and Jorah gets grayscale like in the show, but now they are one step closer to Daenerys. Sansa is next. And after a little bit gap in episodes and seeing her, Sansa and Littlefinger finally depart the Eyrie and go further into the Vale, setting up Harry the Heir for next season. After leaving the Eyrie, we cut to Winterfell, where it is the wedding of fake Arya Stark and Jane Poole and Ramsay Bolton, and fake Arya takes Sansa's place in the whole wedding scene. Including the disgusting part at the end. I'm just saying it. On the wall, Jon is enraged, but to calm him down, Melisandre reveals that Mance Rayder is alive and at Eastwatch, and he's fully recovered. We see this happening, and Melisandre narrating, and Melisandre reveals that Mance Rayder is going to save Arya Stark in Winterfell. And then we see Mance depart the wall. Cutting to the complete opposite sides of the Westeros, in King's Landing, the High Septon gets Tommen to get Jaime Lannister out of his way by sending him to serve House Frey and take back Riverrun from the Blackfish, and this shocks and enrages Cersei. Meanwhile, after months of travel, Sam and Gilly finally arrive in Old Town. Meanwhile, in the Free Cities, we see the Dario and Daenerys sex scene. But to end the whole season, I've ended with Cersei 10. In Cersei 10, Cersei goes to visit Marjorie, and I'm going to have Cersei boast to Marjorie, but once she tries to leave the Sept, the High Septon imprisons Cersei Lannister, taking her captive. That is it for this video, and Season 6 will be coming next year in January. So until then, bye!